Right.
You trying to?
If there is no traffic, about 40 minutes. If there's traffic, it could be anywhere up to an hour. Right. Are you thinking of a plan?
There.
Okay. So, are you based in that stuff?
Yeah.
When's the replacement start? Next year?
Yeah.
It is live.
End of the year. No,
It is live right now.
Some point this summer, I didn't get it yet, so I'm just.
You still looking at
Yeah.
Well, the audio is not bad actually.
Sure, there's a couple of places we can recommend, because I know quite a few.
Have a beer. Is everyone okay for drinks?
Yes.
All good?
Leicester.
Just have the beer actually. Really pushed the button.
There was one placement for the keeping.
Right.
I thought, you know,
I'm gonna look like steps then.
key like key big.
No.
Small difference.
Much more.
I mean,
Oh wow, you've really upped the tech this time.
Oh yeah, no expense spared here. What do you reckon? You'll get on these stuff and that's what do you want? What do you want there?
I didn't
You refuse it, what do you want?
How long will they?
Okay. You can use the desktop setting microphone.
The back end.
It's fine. Go on.
I'm using yours. They're trying to migrate.
No, you can use yours. Hang on, let me just.
I got the stabilizer there, so that's going to show you like what's running in the background. It's like plugin, Chrome plugin out. I'm just curious, like,
Nice to see you again.
most of them sound like that one.
How are
I
you?
don't have the next
Work going okay?
page is running on IIS.
Yeah.
I know it's got this.
Yeah, good, thank you. Organisation of the day.
What do you want to go to?
No.
Front end, back end, software, web development?
At the moment, I'm mostly comfortable with that. But not every, to be honest, I don't know.
No, I think I'm going to try and do one February. I want to do it, but.
Is it want you to drink? Oh, I did. Yeah, just that fish down there.
That might do it.
Yeah, maybe you should. Do it.
I was asking, like, last year.
I mean,
I
January
was
usually
on that open day and they done this.
February, they've got one space. But
A few times we just have like they're not fully doing placements.
who else wants it? But yeah, you're more than welcome to. I'll come down.
Right.
Yeah.
Give it. Right, your first one. Your first one. Yeah, this is the first one. Yeah, we're coming with this group of my friends as well. Oh, okay, excellent. Oh, where do you work? MMT, which is in based in Uppingham. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent.
Hey, what?
Yeah. No, it's quite good. Yeah,
Have you been here before?
yeah. This is like the third one, so yeah, it's really
We
good.
are
Yeah, really good.
doing something like that.
Do a lot more people come? Or?
Yeah, well, they've got about 40 something signed up this week, but that number doesn't usually come. They usually get they don't usually get
Yeah.
Yes, with all these like talk things that you get loads of people signing up, then
And they
you
don't come
get
here.
we get really good turnout. So
Yeah.
Just a drain of society.
And it's like really, for us, it's quite interesting.
You try to
It's
find a
in
new
Leicester
place.
as well. So
yeah, well, they Nottingham. It's like Nottingham, just and that's been going on for ages.
Yeah, have you been to that?
I don't have it really,
No.
but I mean, this is so there used to be this Leicester Tech,
Yeah.
which used to be in Mindera, you know where?
Yeah,
the code-
yeah.
but they I only went to one of them. I think they had about 20 previous. Then they stopped like doing it. But then it was when I went to them, only about only about 4 or 5 people turned
Oh,
up.
really?
And then after, then they
Changed it to morning.
cancelled it,
Yeah.
and I thought they'd cancel it because of Christmas. But then they did They cancelled the whole
I
load.
got a React.
Then they had one few months back there which I did go to, but they haven't done any more since then.
Okay, there's another one. I think.
It's quite far away though, from here. LMT's in Peterborough, well, near Peterborough. Huh? Uppingham, that's right. Yeah.
It's like
Do you from M&T?
Yeah.
geographically, it's not that far from Leicester, but that fucking road.
It's that country road, isn't it? Yeah. Did you find the journey here? Okay.
So I live in Leicester anyway.
Oh, right.
So
Which
yeah, I
side
just
of
got,
Leicester?
which side?
Yeah.
Oh,
The good side or the
Hamilton.
bad side?
Hamilton's close to the A47.
Yeah, so you're like east, northeast.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Because on the other side, you've got Gopers.
Yeah, it's crazy going through that side. Yeah.
Did you send me the?
So, yeah, I think there's another one.
Maybe an hour drive or something. You like it?
It depends. Like from the edge of Leicester to Uppingham is about 40 minutes, but that from that side of Leicester to anywhere beyond halfway is between half an hour and an hour, depending on.
You go to meetups as well, and it takes me, I don't know, once I leave Leicester, maybe half an hour or so to get there. But it takes me at least 20-25 minutes to get out of Leicester. And then we go, not too
Fucking also massive BMWs, like
That's too much money.
that sort of thing. Yeah.
So where do you work?
I work from a company called Closebus, which is in Derby.
Oh, so you have to travel.
Yeah, it takes about 40 minutes. Takes a bit longer now because on the M1. It takes about
Oh, what do you do there?
IT. Sorry, when it's IT, sorry. I mean, like a lot of people, that's what I do. They who are not sort of IT people, and they say IT, but
Sticky things.
programmer,
They go
front-end developer.
Oh, really?
Yeah, front-end developer, back-end developer as well. So been IT for quite a long time. So.
Okay, yeah. And do you do things like React? And things like that?
Yeah,
I'll put it on.
we do.
Is this the company you work for?
We do.
Actually, my company. Would you like a bit?
We're gonna get
React front-end is a bit more Angular as well.
Okay, yeah.
Normal sort of JavaScript type stuff.
And you do like lots of like HTML.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah, we do like lots like that.
So what do you do?
So I work for a company, M&T Digital. I don't know if I've got any business. I'd say stop turning them around. But yeah, like basically, I don't have any. But we basically we do lots of stuff. So we do UX design, or you can find our website.
It's doing stickers like every year. They like them. $5, but he's got like 5,000 of them. And they still have it, but they're pretty cool.
Oh, maybe it's run out.
Oh, they run out in a few hours.
Yeah.
Just put it there.
Part of you is on my phone.
Hi.
Yeah, good. Nice to meet you. So what's your name?
Girish.
I'll be having COVID. I'll be speaking to Pete on Tuesday morning. I'm trying to get a placement. You're from M&T, right?
I'm from M&T.
I'm not from M&T.
So yeah, so I'll be speaking to Avon on Tuesday morning about the placement. Abe Smith?
Abby.
Huh?
Abby Smith.
Oh, it's Abby.
Abby, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yes, we've got another two people there. They're from M&T as well. The guy in the red. They're still from there as well. Oh, but you're speaking to them about?
About this placement.
Oh, okay. Oh, so placement year for. Yeah.
I know I'm a bit older student. So.
Oh, really? So, okay, and you're front end developer?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, that'll be good.
Yeah, so I'm curious what's that.
What's the company
How
about?
that's gonna go? I know you guys are heavy on agile, that you do coaching for other companies. Yeah, and interesting tech stack.
Yeah, we do lots of stuff. Probably be good to catch up with you a little bit later. So like we do like front end, yeah, all of that stuff. And then we do back end stuff. I'm one of them. You've got 11 of them. So we just really promote. But MVC side of things, is that, you know, using the content area as the source, and then build everything around it. So it's more of a content like to do things. So, you know, once you like settle in, and then it'll be the case of
Yeah, we won't go on.
yeah. Did you have you used Content before?
No.
So we do other stuff as well. We do headless. That's fine. But it's basically API first driven. So you write the API to feed. Okay, that's all. That's simple.
Yeah, exactly.
But if you've got like you're like things like that, you know, we'll welcome people to yeah, we have. So like literally like 6 or 7. Yeah, if you just give me your details, and then I can just then I can speak to you. What's your name again?
Martin.
Martin. So yeah, I'll tomorrow. Say hi.
Yeah, that's cool. So what type of things you work on?
So I'm more of a architect, so I tell people how to build things. So I'm a technical architect, CMS architect, so this kind of so really more of a advisor with you guys what you like.
Anything. Yeah, I mean, like this sort of thing is really sort of interesting. Yeah, kind of like sounds very much like microservices. That's what they are, but then when it starts to get into observers, for example, like in JavaScript, that's fine, but if you get how to support, for example, the distinction, that's really different. That's a bit different, but I'll be digging more into React extensions, definitely.
And we have people who do just who do like
It's just not enough time to do everything.
exactly, yeah. And everything is always changing.
Yeah, but I think with that content stuff as well, I mean, it's like a for that company, so this is they sort of look for your like enthusiasm rather than
Yeah, like it's just keen to learn. Yeah, want to improve. Yeah, I think there's a.
I mean, half the stuff even the language as well. Like, if you sort of think, how am I going to do this? Right? All you do is like Google search, right? Those are the people. Just that sort of exactly. That thing, yeah. You seem like I'm using plastic guys.
So that is probably like more of a
Yes, I'm doing something like happen. It can be also because the first course is taking place in the college.
Okay.
So it's just the same concept as so it's called like virtual computer. So it's literally the same thing that is teaching in university just taking place
Well, the one thing that can stand out with other people as well, it's a still, so it's GitHub's open source project. Have a word with Josh about it because he's sort of lost the chapter in, but this is really my yeah. So with this sort of stuff, we can just build. I mean, I'll be doing some work for it as well. What API, and we just put it just the industry. But if you go into this open source project, you're going to get into
I'm looking for I was looking for this, those October thing going on. Even before that, so I was expecting but most of the stuff it's just hard to find this. So so whatever these issues they're like, oh, just I don't know, just do your first commit, just do your first PR, or then there is stuff that you might need to have to sit on it for like 2 weeks or so, and you still have that
this one, for example, I mean, Josh has added sort of ones in there, so this of course, permission is really good to get.
So pretty much it's like they launch cohorts every few months. So pretty much when you sign up for it, you put together in a team of some of people, and you just within 8 weeks you build a project. What's it called? It's called
Okay, that's a Korean word. Just scroll it down.
So yes, I'm starting on Monday. With a new project. I don't know who yet.
And how much time do you expect you to put in that?
It depends how much you
You can do in
We're trying.
you need to talk to the
Technical things this time, so we'll go for a microphone because it is live on YouTube. If you don't want to appear in it, then don't look at the camera. So this month it's the October Meetup. So as many of you know, this is a meetup monthly on the third Thursday of the month. We won't be doing one next month because the third Thursday of the month is basically Christmas Day, I believe. So we won't be doing one, but we're back in January. If you do want to speak at the event, follow through to that link on GitHub, and you can fill out an issue there, and you can list an issue, and we can get back to you and schedule in a talk. Also feedback as well, and we are now trying to build a site as well. I just spun up Create React app on it, but if you want to contribute to that and maybe get our meetups coming through on that website, that'd be great for your contributions. There are the details for any Wi-Fi and things like that. Probably take a picture of that if you need it for later. The Slack as well is very good to have. There's a lot of discussion going on there, and we want to drive more and more people there to build a bit of a community within Leicester for tech. Food as well will be arriving at about 7:30, as many of you know, it's pizza, so hope you like. And there's beer and soft drinks at the front. And if you want coffee or tea or water, you can go through to the other kitchens and help yourself. Fire exits are behind here. Hopefully there won't be a fire, don't start any. Bathrooms, if you go out the way you came, and then the first one on the left men's, and the second for women's. And if you don't know where they are, ask someone who's Cloud Core. If you put your hands up, Cloud Core people, ask any of these people, they'll be able to tell you where anything is. Unconf as well is happening on the 24th of November, and there's a few people here coming. If you want some free tickets, go through to those links and use those off codes at the end. PHP loves Cloud Core and PHP loves JS. There's 16 tickets up for grabs, so if you want to go and have a free ticket, go for it. Also, lovely thanks to Cloud Core who have sponsored this event for us. They've put the bill for everything that you're seeing here, so very kind thanks for them. And we are also hiring, so if you want to get a job here, then by all means apply. So the next talk that we're going to have is going to be in January. It's going to be by Dave Irvine on Embedded.js. Raise your hand, Dave. There he is. And we're also going to have another exciting one by Mark Ackroyd, our development director at Cloud Core. He's been doing some very fun things with JavaScript and stuff, so that'll be very interesting. So now over to Stefanos. Let me just tell you.
Yeah, I'm not really good at presentation, but anyway, I'll do my best. So today I'm going to talk about a library basically, which is called Zone.js. I don't know if any of you are familiar with it. Is anyone familiar with it? Yeah, that's I. So Zone.js basically is a standalone library, but it's also part of the underlying mechanism that fires change detection in Angular 2 and above. And it's one of the things that have actually made Angular 2 possible, basically, because the first version of Angular, AngularJS, is not very good at tracking changes. It's so they developed a better mechanism, which yes, well, yeah, we'll go through that. Oh. Yeah. So, what is a zone? A zone is a really simple concept, and you can actually explain it in just 2 sentences. It's a mechanism for intersecting and keeping track of asynchronous work. And zone is, yes, it's an execution context that persists across async tasks. What does that mean, basically? Does it make sense to anyone?
Yeah.
Something.
Nothing wrong with that.
So, okay, so in order to understand how zone works, we have to go to the very basics, which is basically how the event loop works, how the callback queue works, and how certain browser functionality interacts with them. And I guess everyone is familiar with those. But for the sake of presentation, I'm going to go through them in order to make a point. So we have a really simple piece of code. Yeah, it's really simple, and we will go through it. I simplified some things. I'm moving some other things because I'm trying to keep the presentation a bit simple. So in this simple script, what will actually happen is the first thing that enters the stack is the start script. So JavaScript compiler basically starts reading the script. Then function A will enter the stack. Then function B will enter the stack, but it will leave immediately and will go to the callback queue because it's a say timeout. It's not the right time to be executed. Next, C is going to go enter the queue. Still, it's not time to be executed. So we will go back to the callback queue. B will end the stack, and then B and C will be popped up into the stack. And yeah, that's the basics. That's how it works. But that creates a problem in some scenarios. And the problem is if we want to see how long the execution lasted, we can't. Basically, calling the start here and here, then calculating time, will basically give us how long A and B to execute it. And B and C is the output equation. So this is the problem that zones are trying to solve. It's a mechanism for knowing exactly when a piece of code starts and when it ends, even though it has asynchronous operations in it. So I explained a really simplified version of the call stack, but then they didn't look at the truth is a bit more complicated. Because the callback queue basically has two queues on its own. One is the task queue, and the other one is the microtask queue. Yeah. Okay, so the task is added to the stack. It stays there until all its pending microtasks have been depleted. For example, a promise usually has two microtasks attached to it. So when the promise goes in the stack, the microtask needs to be depleted before the next function gets called. There are some exceptions in that rule, and that is when the last task basically when there is only one task in the stack, sorry, I'm just nervous. So like the third point says, when the task exits the stack and only the stack is empty, any new pending microtasks have been executed. Then a new task enters the stack. So Zone.js addresses that problem by creating zones, which they have events, which basically we know when a piece of code enters the zone, so when a function enters a zone and when the function leaves the zone. So that means we can, based on those events, calculate the duration of the function. Angular uses that to refresh the view. So when every task has been executed in a component, then it refreshes the view. Any changes, API changes, promises coming into that component will trigger another cycle, another zone, and when the zone finishes, it will go and update the view. So, like I said, yeah, in Angular, zone.js is used to detect when certain async operations occur to trigger a change in data cycles. Those operations are events, HTTP requests, and timers. In Angular, you don't really directly use zones. They have written a wrapper that wraps the basic functionality, which is called any zone, which is just a function name or a child zone. And that's because you need to be aware of the current zone. So at the same time, Angular can run things outside that zone, which means you can run stuff which they won't trigger a change detection mechanism to make things lighter. Also, the zone has an event which can tell you there are pending microtasks in the queue. So you can ask as frequently as you want, what is the status of my zone? Is it almost over? Are there pending microtasks being depleted or there's something? Stuff. Okay, it handles only common AJAX functionality. JSONP doesn't work with zones because I don't know if you're familiar with JSONP doesn't use the normal the normal JavaScript library that does its requests. It goes through an object. Okay, so and the other thing is that as of last month, Zone.js is now a standard on TC39. That doesn't mean it will actually end up in the next version of JavaScript, but it is a proposed standard. And like I said, I will go through the entire thing really quickly. I was really worried about that. But yeah, do you have any questions? I could actually answer.
Do you know what React uses under the hood to manage this sort of stuff? Does it use an implementation of zones or a similar type of technology, or is it completely different?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I haven't worked with React that much, so maybe they do have something similar. I'm not aware. I don't know if anyone knows about that. So, does anyone know how React handles change detection cycles? Yeah. So the other thing is it's not magic. It's a really simple concept. And I mean, in Angular especially, you can even remove it completely. If you don't want zones to handle your change detection cycle, you can remove it. It's part of the compiler options. But that means you need to write something of your own invention that actually triggers, which might not be that easy. But yeah, it is possible and quite straightforward.
Hands up here, who uses React?
Yeah. Lots. How many do you use Angular?
We're going to have a war between the two.
That's the question if you want to use React.
Well, I'm sure that they do. I don't think everyone can be forced to use a framework. Yeah.
Okay, for the React developers, have you actually tried Angular? Or have you just kind of stuck with React because that's what you kind of known or tried and then just stuck with it from there? Or has anybody sort of tried both?
I've tried both.
Yeah, I tried both.
Yeah.
So why do you prefer Angular, React over Angular?
It's much closer to start something new. It's very close to like vanilla JavaScript. The abstraction is not that hidden as it is on Angular for me. That's why I prefer React, because the learning curve is not as steep as it is on Angular. Where on Angular, pretty much, if you are, for example, not fan of types, you're screwed. Because right now you have to use TypeScript, for example.
Yeah, if you don't like TypeScript, you're screwed. I bet that.
Yeah, I love TypeScript personally, but so I don't have an issue with that. But yeah, it's just much easier to start to build something in React, in my opinion.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, sorry. Yeah, I mean, I sort of lost faith in it because I sort of built applications Angular 1, and then when they sort of brought out Angular 2 and made it completely like different,
Yeah.
it was just so like annoying. So then I just went to React, but I might start looking into Angular 2.
Yeah, it's an interesting problem because with at Cloud Call we started off using AngularJS, obviously the very first sort of iterations of the framework, and now they actually now Angular 7, and we've got a bit of a project.
Different frameworks, they're completely different frameworks.
We've started sort of looking at how we can bring the components up to date, but that's interesting. So from using this sort of terminology or this sort of the zone things, how do you handle it with React, or is it sort of taken away from you?
You don't need to think about it.
You don't need to think about it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, in Angular, you don't need to think about it.
Yeah, you do.
Well, how often do you create zones?
Well, there's many times where Angular is not clever enough to update, so you have to use a change detector service, inject that in and force it.
Yeah, but that's because the object references are not getting updated.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
But yeah.
If an object reference doesn't get updated,
Well, no, but it's
for Angular, it's not the same.
No, but sometimes you do have to force it manually. Angular is sometimes not clever enough to do it. I've had that many times.
Yeah, I know, but don't think React is clever.
No,
especially when it comes to updating an array, which the reference is still the same, which is the big problem in Angular.
Yeah.
You still have to, I don't know, either create a new object or use the spread operator to create a new object, so you could force the automated detection cycle. I mean, there are ways to force the automated detection cycle without using the change detection. Yeah.
The one thing I don't like about Angular is they really overcomplicate everything, don't they? They go, right, let's make it really hard to just start up something. And they want it to go for the whole Angular way. It's like the Google thing. Like, you should do everything this way. And it's just like, no. But I like Angular, yeah.
But it's not like Rails in that way. Rails is very opinionated about what it does, but it does it very well.
Yeah.
I think if you bind to our universe, then sure. But
Angular does it very well, in my opinion at least. And yeah, there is a learning curve in the beginning, but once you go through that, everything is easy.
You started a holy war here. Is this what you? Are we going to discuss Brexit next? Is this what you want?
Okay. I'm going to say something a bit irrelevant. So, the weirdest framework I've worked in my life, and I worked for 6 months, and I'm not even putting it on my CV because I did once, and they actually called me for a job. I don't want that.
Was it PHP?
It's ADF. Is anyone familiar with ADF?
No, never heard of it.
It's an MVC framework from Oracle.
Well, there's a problem.
It has a learning curve of a year.
Wow.
After 6 months, we actually did a lot of training. We basically created a dropdown. I'm not joking.
Imagine that screen, that band.
So we actually had to hire someone who actually knew it.
It took them 6 months to drop down as well.
No, well, it took them some months really. Yeah, awful. That's perfect. React is good. I've used both, but I prefer the strict rules. And React is a library. You can do anything you want with it. Okay, and there is a framework. You can do anything you want, but there are ways around everything.
How performant is this zones detection compared to another framework like, say, React? Is it incredibly fast, or is it a bit slow because of the implementation, or?
I can't compare it with React because I don't have a lot of experience with it, but if you compare it with AngularJS, AngularJS is like a snail, and that's a rabbit. It's a good comparison. I mean, yeah. Anyone who has worked with AngularJS knows that change detection cycles are awful, and you have to manually keep refreshing sometimes the view in hoping that the view will actually refresh. In this case, you don't have. I mean, even if you go in some edge cases, it doesn't trigger the cycle. There are ways to trigger the cycle yourself properly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does it work with async await?
Yes, that's the whole point.
Good.
That's the whole point of the thing. Is it works with this async await with the normal root doesn't. That's the thing. You can give a function which has 20 promises inside that, and you'll get an event when the first promise starts executing, which means the first microtask enters the queue, the callback queue, and you'll get notified when the last pending microtask was depleted, which means everything within that zone now is executed.
Do you not get the same thing with an async function with promise.all, and you await that outer call?
Yeah, I've heard that argument before, to be honest. No, I mean, you can't do promise.all on the entire component, can you? You have functions within that which have promises and other API requests. Yes, you could gather all the promises in an array magically. If there are no dependencies on another, resolve them, and you could do that. But if you want to doing one promise and then another one, but at the same time I want to do two more, you don't really know which one is the last one.
That's just chaining.
Yeah,
Just have to return
you can't
promises
chain
all the
everything. Yeah, but by chaining everything, you're making your work synchronous, while this keeps everything asynchronous. That's the thing. It basically creates a virtual stack where async and await doesn't mean anything. It's just functions. So, okay, last one. You go here. So when B enters zone, it will stay there. And when C enters the zone, it will stay there. And D enters the zone, it will stay there. And when all of them get executed, you'll get an event saying, I'm done. You can do whatever you want now. And it's implemented in such a way you don't need to do fancy things like promise or anything. The only thing you need to do is basically create a zone and run the entire set, your entire code in that zone. Yeah, I'm not trying to convince you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. We have exactly 1 minute if Domino speaks are on time until food comes. So talk amongst yourselves and I'll go grab it and then call you all in. So, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I used to, I done you, sorry,
Yeah. So both, yeah, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, well, when Angular first came out, you said that you used it then because that was the sort of hot thing. But then when they introduced like the second, when they did the new release, I thought, okay, excellent, we'll just like get that stuff completely different.
I haven't used from whatever I read. It's just like a different framework. It just shares the name.
Yeah, yeah. So then I just sort of lost sort of a bit of like faith and stuff. So I went to React, but a lot of people are using Angular too. So I can't really comment whether how it compares to React. But
I was sitting all day.
Oh, really? Have you been to these before?
Yeah. I went to a couple of Agile Leicester.
Oh, yeah.
But it's more like for product owners or for managers. And there was a couple of what was the first topic? Yeah, the second topic was Kanban, where it's like, well, I don't know much about it. I read a book about Kanban. Yeah, and it just, you know, when they try to introduce the topic, well, like the topic was Kanban. And we pretty much walked through all the Kanban, so whatever I read, he just repeated back to me. So I didn't learn. The only thing I learned from the Kanban is that it starts going maybe forward just to put their, I don't know, you know, you mark them and the task is coming back. The only thing. And then I went to Derby for .NET.
Oh, yeah.
So that one was about the Docker. And before I went there, I spent half a day with Docker.
And then you learned it all.
Yeah, because the guy was working for Microsoft, Oracle, and now he started for AWS, and he's kind of like evangelist. Kind of person, I forgot what was his name, but yeah. So regarding Docker, he just mentioned like one tool, which pretty much gets all the environment in a nice GUI kind of thing, and you can run the commands from there.
Oh, okay.
But again, it makes the thing. So I like these. I like these LeicesterJS and Tech Nottingham is great.
So you go to those?
I had to. Yeah, so I went to Agile Leicester. I didn't get the value, and I didn't. So like connecting people there. It's like, I'm a student. I'm like kind of like developers. They're like project managers and so on. So
is that the one that I don't know? Yeah. Because I went to 2 or 3 of them as well, and I sort of found the same as well. It's more sort of they get loads of people, don't they?
we feel like business analysts or something around that area, like that's perfect. But for developers, not so much. And for example, this technology this first one was cancelled. It was just this Monday. Yeah, so I think like the people are great, and the thing is, the topics they do they're not like this introduction to this or that, but they have there's a bit more different take on the talks.
Yeah.
So yeah,
They used to have a just telling they used to have a Leicester Tech Hub as well on the Mandela, and then like I mean like I went to one and it was okay. There wasn't any turnout, there wasn't like but then after that, they like
no, that one was like I remember because I went to 2 after that. And it was on this Meetup page, and I was just like waiting in front of the door, and then I checked when it was cancelled, so I just went home.
Yeah. And then they had one in the was it Exchange or something? In the Exchange program, which I couldn't make, and then after they cancelled it.
No, it was never up for a regular thing. Then I think it's they might do it again for Christmas now. I know they do a product tag. That's for more this product tag. I'm not really sure. Yeah, I'm not really sure.
Yeah, probably Nottingham team, they like tend to have much like the Nottingham Tech and they're like really, every week and it's even the Nottingham case.
There's just so many.
Yeah.
I don't know, driving this much, but then it gets into, it takes like the whole afternoon together. So,
yeah,
so I can like either go to Meetup or just get stuff done.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, just studying it.
I'm going there because there's not much going on. I kind of like referring to that one because I'm not getting the value. I'm just not getting the value back. I'm thinking I just not getting the value. That's what I'm thinking. I definitely want to do this, but I'm not sure if I'm going to do it. Do you think you know you'll be able to decide to have a job? I bet you would love to get a job, but at some point, it depends on the level. Yeah, I guess it depends on the level. I think so. Although I think I watched that. I would just say
All that's life is crazy. But I work from home.
Oh yeah, I'll talk about it.
Oh, is that what you reckon? I'm not doing it. Sometimes I don't see my colleagues.
I'm just gonna say, look, from there, buy everything.
So you're here to tell us that
No, I'm here to talk about the technical side. So you're not to worry about
Water. Yes, I can get you some water. Follow me.
Hey mate, have you tried wind checking?
No.
6 changes everyone's firm. I had mine in about a minute. Everyone's like still struggling about 3 days later. 6 changes like 3 sessions. 3 wind check. Yeah.
If we were going I was like, Dennis,
yeah.
Okay. Oh, it's cute.
Well,
My own voice,
Thank you, mate.
oh god.
Actually, that one.
Yeah, but I think we're trying to improve that much yet. It's very clearly very good. But I mean, once he got
Once you sit picking pictures,
yeah, he knows his stuff. He just
absolutely knows his stuff.
I think he's just nervous that he couldn't remember his presentation.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I explained this to my I first started. This is awful. We still
the more it's like pizza.
yeah, we do have
We didn't have that many. How many did we have?
We 13.
Well, I told you towards more than 30.
Really?
Yeah, because there's not.
yeah, there's not people.
What do you we have?
No, they're not.
We filled most of the seats, and there was 44.
You guys had pizza and all that. You okay?
Yeah.
Are you from Madeira as well?
No,
You're not. Oh, whereabouts are you at?
Where I work?
Yeah.
I work for a company in Leamington Spa.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
I live here in Leicester.
Yeah.
I work for a place called Neptitude.
Neptitude.
Cybersecurity firm.
Oh, well, that's pretty cool. How did you find that?
It's alright. It's alright.
Is JS your main language then?
JS is my main language.
Right.
So I'm like doing full stack JavaScript, but a lot of the guys there are Python developers.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say. Thought it might be. Cybersecurity.
I'm pretty much the main UI. JS.
The JS, yeah.
I don't trust any language that don't let me do my own indenting scheme. It's just, yeah. No, I just like stirring it out with language.
Yeah.
Mo, what is it that you
Oh, I work in Nottingham. I was for supporters.
Where's their offices?
Bunny.
Bunny, yeah. Yeah, is it in that industrial estate?
Not sure it's in industrial estate, but it's right before Reading industrial estate.
Oh, Reading,
yeah, I was going to say,
yeah.
Yeah, I thought, yeah. Passed it on the way to the Winnington Park.
Right, yeah, it's right next to it, yeah.
Well, most of the people here, they either from Cloud Call or Mandela. Is it
There's a lot of Mindera people. Yeah, because the Mindera is just down the road.
Really? LCD or something like that?
Not sure, actually. Don't know. There's quite a few people from Cloud Call. Got a few people. Got Girish, the guy at the back. He works for Close Brothers. I don't know where they're based. I forget now. But yeah, mainly Leicester people. So yeah. What brings you here anyway? How did you find the meetup? Just out of interest.
Just on Meetup.
On Meetup, yeah. Is this your first Meetup you've been
It's my
to?
first one in Leicester.
Okay.
I was up in Manchester for a bit, so I was at Mind.js.
Yes.
Then the meetups up there.
Yeah.
But there wasn't one in Leicester, so
No.
at the time.
That's why I started.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why I started it, because I thought, it'd be nice to bring like people together.
Yeah.
From Leicester.
So it's quite a big turnout, to be honest. Like,
Yeah.
Manchester's like a Leicester.
Really?
When I was there.
How did it compare
then?
then?
Just that occasion. But,
how did it compare to, venue-wise? I don't know, everything really, because it's all the surrounding stuff, isn't it?
I mean, the venue's alright. It's in the northern quarter.
Okay.
It's alright. But yeah.
Manchester's a cool place.
I think there's a bit more. There's a lot of meetups in the same place. It's not like I think in Leicester it's not
as many. Yeah.
No.
There's PHP East Midlands.
So
There's PHP East Midlands that takes place at DeMolford University.
Okay.
That's really good actually. They're a good meetup.
Yeah, I think I've been there before.
Yeah, I went a few years ago. But yeah.
So how long has it been going on for?
It's only the third one we've done actually.
Okay.
So as I say, we're not doing one next month. It's December. So everyone's buggered off for Christmas anyway.
Yeah.
But we will be doing one in January. So and then for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
So yeah, it'll be every month apart from December.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's good fun. It's just nice to get together. Just have a chat and get some free pizza.
Yeah, it's good.
How long have you been working at this cybersecurity firm down there?
To be honest, I've only been there since February, end of February.
Okay, yeah, that's about the same time I joined here actually. So.
I've been Birmingham before that.
Okay.
I've moved around a lot.
Yeah. Where were you in Birmingham?
Place called Cadet.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Are they based in Birmingham Centre?
They're near the LEC.
Oh, okay.
So Trinity Business Park.
Yeah.
And they've got a place in Wolverhampton as well.
Oh, okay.
So it's kind of like a digital agency, but the one in Wolverhampton is more the digital agency. The setup in Birmingham is more from the JLR. So it's basically just a lot of Jaguars stuff.
And you're liking it? It's new place then?
Yeah, it's alright. It gives me flexibility. I work from home a lot of the time. I'm only going on Tuesday. So
that's really good. What are you working on then?
At the moment, so there's one cyber, I don't know if it's a cyber map.
Right.
So research basically consumer website getting basic data visualization. Yeah, so it's like,
What with like D3 or something?
yeah, so yeah, it's D3.
Yeah.
But it's basically D3, and I've used Hyper app. I don't know if you know what Hyper app is.
Yeah.
I was going to use React or something like that, but I just used Hyper app. And because a lot of it's, majority of it's D3, I just thought to use React as only care. So I just use that.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
And then obviously there's a Node.js middle server, RX, just to consume the stream and just manipulate the stream.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, we're taking a look at like doing Angular RX.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sarah's got it on YouTube.
Huh?
Sarah's got it on YouTube.
Oh, is she?
Watching it from her desk.
Awesome. Awesome.
I think there's how many is it? 4 people watching remotely, and they're probably all here.
Really?
I'm one of them.
That's just cheating. That's just cheating. Right. Right. I'm gonna have a bit of pizza.
There's not a lot there.
No, not.
No.
I told them to order more. I was like, "There's 42 people coming. You need to order more than 13 because we ordered 13 last time for like
Yeah, and it disappeared.
30 people, and it disappeared in like a flash." Like I said, I have already eaten it, so I'm just being cheeky about it.
Yeah, I filled up a little bit for him as well, just in case.
Yeah. Right, Dave.
Do you not eat any of the pizza, John?
I ate before, actually, if I'm honest, and also from the sounds of it, it's nearly all gone.
Well, I was just having a philosophical discussion about ham and pineapple pizza, and the fact that in general society, not a lot of people seem to like ham and pineapple pizza, but that was the first pizza to go.
Is that right?
I'm wondering if there's a correlation between software developers and ham and pineapple pizza.
Well, Ramsey doesn't like
Software developers are a contrary lot.
Yes.
Well, no, we're right in the status quo. You know, the Mavericks, as Steve. Yeah, well, there you are. Maybe that's maybe you need to do D3JS data visualization and ham and pineapple pizzas and developers.
Follow-up survey. Pizza topping favourite.
Yes.
Put it as a something.
We should
Like,
be.
what is your favourite pizza?
What is your favourite pizza? Yeah. And please write a 500-word essay that justifies your decision.
Anything with meat
So-
and jalapenos.
I like to consume at least 3, if not 4 handfuls per size. That's just a go really.
Yeah, I just had a jalapeno experience. I'm not a spice person, and I got a slice that had jalapeno. I was like, I don't know what this pizza is. I'm just gonna eat it. Oh, okay. Thanks to Coke Zero. I've got to ask, why?
Yes.
Purple, because all of the other JS related logos, yellow.
Yeah. Okay. So yellow. First of all, it's the cloud called purple. Second of all, everyone uses yellow. These are yellow. JS is yellow. There's enough yellow. Like the sun's yellow.
Right.
These are purple. Equal it out.
Okay. Also,
And
there is no reason. I'm just joking.
purple psychologically is an interesting colour because it doesn't really exist.
yes, true.
Is that right?
Yes,
Yeah,
you can't find it in nature.
It's
What about violets?
the light spectrum. No, you got violet at one end, ultraviolet and infrared. Purple is the colour your brain imagines when it joins those two ends up to make the colour spectrum.
Is that right?
But it's not a kind of circular spectrum, is it? Of course, it's a spectrum of electromagnetic. Purple doesn't exist except in your
That
mind.
is right.
Purple's
Is that
the
like-
magic colour.
Is that like black being actually not a colour but the absence of the colour?
Yeah, sort of, yeah.
There's
His talk is like 45 slides. We're going to be here all
Who?
night.
Josh's? Oh yeah, I've been through it. It's very long.
We've got like 25 minutes
There's so many
And
PowerPoint
we're going to have to buy
transitions.
crypto at the end of it.
Yeah. and it's blockchain based, so I'm kind of tempted to just leave.
That's why.
It's blockchain based, so you have to get through each slide.
Yeah,
first.
you can't skip any slides.
No, that's why it's the plot, right?
Invalidates the entire talk.
Yeah, I'm putting the Britney mic on and you're going to tackle from the back.
Well, only a JS meeting would you come up with blockchain jokes.
I'm going to have to give
I've got like 45 minutes of
start.
blockchain material.
Sure.
You question my knowledge of what was the other one? Eclectic, yeah? Do you know what that word means?
Yeah.
Take glitch.
Fundamentally, that is a big word.
You're looking good. You're not. No, you're looking amazing.
Great.
I believe you. Yeah, you're looking not the same, basically. Yeah.
Full range of compliments.
All Hester. You're writing more sausages in recently. No. Karen's scared, doesn't she?
Oh dear. We invite him again.
Let's go in here and just you miss me in the office, deep down.
Every day, Josh. Every day.
We have to pick on you don't need to we need to give you your chip certificate.
Oh, what?
Adam can't go that. Yeah. You won't get a chip certificate.
Adam definitely can't eat that.
No, he's gone. That's not what you want. Yeah, so it's like eating his body weight in chip. Yeah, I'm gonna eat that.
It was crazy.
So, should we start rounding up the troops?
Yes, I think we should.
Right, I'm gonna.
Especially if Josh is talking back.
I should get there in half an hour.
No, I glaze over. Just leave it to.
Yeah, that's fine. You might like it.
I'm willing to be pleasantly surprised.
Sarah just asked me a question.
Yes.
What is blockchain?
Well, we're going to find out.
So I said, we're live streaming. What is blockchain?
Does anyone actually know what blockchain is?
I do.
It's a chain of blocks.
Yeah.
Yeah, why?
God knows. Because some person invented it and then everyone went, oh yeah, that's a good idea.
It is a good idea.
It's actually fun. Yeah, it's really good.
You have to live every day.
It's a good idea. I bet people were like, oh, money, what's that?
Pointy sticks, wheels.
No, I'd rather have an imaginary
Somebody
thing.
did it yesterday on YouTube. Somebody faked
Really?
Sorry? I don't know. And on I think they do on graduation. Or you give a speech. Started speaking English. But no one is remembering it, and everyone was raising their hands.
Someone in this room.
That does carbonated water. So if you want ice cold carbonated, you can do warm water. So it's not fizzy tip.
You could
What do you, front end so you got REST API stuff as well. It really works. So they're like a virtual bank. They've got an office in
Always on the back, you see, it's doing like learning things.
Yeah, it's been with them for about 4 or 5 years, but I think they look for something closer to home.
4 hours. It's tiring.
So, right, yeah. Because the place where the office is it's not, you can't really get the train, it's sort of, just near the motorway. So there's not really any closest, so the closest station is along the Eton Station. Yeah, so it's actually on the border of Derby and Nottingham.
Okay. 2 hours in Amsterdam.
Right, so we've got another talk by Josh Stevens unfair maybe Bitcoin stuff.
No.
Yeah, take it away.
Hello. Maybe my voice is loud enough to hear.
It's packed.
Is it on the thing?
Yes.
Definitely.
Well, you said it was. Press it again. Yeah, okay, ready? Cover your ears. Hello.
Is that working?
Hello. Yeah.
There we
go. Right.
Put the glass out.
I know it. Oh, can I turn it off? Sorry. Hello. Hello.
Oh, there you go. It's not going there.
Hello.
Yeah.
This can just stay. Don't turn it on. Right. Cool. Hi guys. I'm Josh Stevens. I'm going to talk about blockchain and Ethereum development fundamentals. It's not going to be about JS, sorry, but it's going to be about the blockchain and Ethereum, a language called Solidity, which is how you write smart contracts. So, I'm Josh Stevens. I say I do loads of programming languages, just so it's important, right? I got into blockchain early 2017. I'm a holder and investor of cryptocurrency. That's my GitHub. I work for a company called Funfair. I actually used to work here until I left. Yep. So who do I work for? So it's a company called Funfair. What they do is they're the first decentralized gambling software. And what decentralized means is basically no one's in control of it. There's no third party. We set a defined set of rules in smart contracts, and those rules have to abide to them, obviously. So it's completely transparent. What that gives us over Bet365, Skybet, X, Y, and Z is you don't know what's actually happening on this black box in Bet365. It could happen if they won 40, return false, and make them lose. With us, your funds get paid straight into your wallet. With Bet365, if you win, say you win £10,000, if you're really lucky, they have terms and conditions that they can only pay you half. They will do everything not to pay you, and they're in control of the funds as soon as you deposit it. We're kind of bring complete transparency to this really multi-billion-pound industry. Our owner is someone called Jez San. He's a big gamer. I don't know if any of you heard of him. He kind of was part of founding Nintendo. Last July, they raised 26 million in 4 months in this ICO, which means initial coin offering. When ICO was sky high, and we're an 800 billion market cap, which we're nowhere near now. 6 months later, because of Ethereum, it was up to about 160 million. And this is a company who have only got 40 employees. So they're a very rich company, and they've got a lot of money to explore things. Front end is all written in Angular 6 plus. Back end is .NET Core and a little bit of Node. SQL Server for our transactions, our hex keys, our hashes, and most of our stuff is embedded in the blockchain, obviously. The contracts are written in Solidity. So what's Funfair's aim? I touched on it a little bit before, but what they're aiming to do is create a one-click casino. So at the moment, if you wanted to become a casino, it would be very difficult for you to get up and running. With our utility token, Fun Token, you could start an operator, you can be as big as small as you want, and you can do a casino in one click and start taking on the 15 games we've already got, and all you need is to stop fun. Instant funds pay straight into your wallet, which the other gambling sites don't do. So because we have a set of smart contracts, all our games are smart contracts, it goes into both the operator and the player put money into the smart contracts. The operator puts the max amount payout, and if they win, it goes straight back into your wallet, and if you lose, it goes to the operator. So the operator actually never gets access to your funds until you've actually lost. Every game is open source, completely transparent. You don't, like I said before, you don't know if winnings over 40 return false from the likes of Bet365 and Skybet, and it's trustless. So what that means is it can't be biased. The client never trusts the server, and the server never trusts the client. And it's completely transparent. And like I said before, if operators can't afford to pay the max bet, they won't be allowed to even offer that. And there's been quite a few times where someone's put on £10 on a small operator, won 50 grand, and in their terms it says, if we go bust, we won't pay you, and they just didn't pay them. So what does the Fun Token do? So I'm talking about Fun Tokens, all these brilliant tokens. It's basically a utility token. The Fun Token is a cryptocurrency built on top of Ethereum. Has any of you heard of Ethereum before? Has any of you heard of altcoins before? Okay, yeah, cool. So, so what it allows us to do is we can build a complete ecosystem around a token. And now this token is powered for everything. And what it allows us to do is it's open. There's a static amount created. So we can't say, right, we're going to create £16 billion more. And it's fast and it's all transparent. How will fund be used? Right, so like I said before, it's powered completely by the platform. So the casinos need to stock fun, obviously to offer payouts. The games themselves need to stock fun, and the developers need to stock fun. We actually are creating our own app store, so third-party developers can hook into all our APIs and build their own games. And that's ongoing at the moment. And we're actually just about to build our own wallet because at the moment it's very difficult for people to get involved. We need it to be seamless, which I'll touch on a bit later. So that simple talk, what is the blockchain? What is it? You've got people over there with the eyebrow piercing saying, oh, it's a pile of crap. But I think it's got a really good use. So it first came about in 1991. These researchers were basically trying to make digital timestamps so they could do something and it could never be changed again. People thought it was a useless idea, no one touched it. In 2009, Bitcoin created their first digital currency, which kind of uses all of that technology. It's just basically an open source database. And it's called a blockchain because each transaction is a block, and there's data, there's a hash, and there's a hash which links back to the previous block. But each block is individual to itself, and you can put whatever you want in there. No one's in control of the data. It's free to query that data, but you must pay the miners to put a new block into the blockchain, which is something called gas, which I'll talk about a bit later. So what does the blockchain solve? Right. So at the moment, banks can lend out 12 times as much money as they actually have in the bank if they're a 12-grade bank. Okay, that's quite scary, right? No one's ever in control of their money. Like right now, you've got X amount of money in your account, but it's just a figure. People are touching that all the time. So, my theory, first came like selling sheep, then gold, then money, then credit cards and cards. There's always something next. And this could be the next thing where people want to be in a decentralized marketplace and be in control of their funds and not worry that Stefanos is going to go and borrow 10 million to start up a Zone.js company and it's all going to go tits up. I've got, you probably can't see that, but I bet this obviously is getting uploaded to GitHub, but this is just basically what it could solve. There's a blockchain and there's a solution for basically everything. People trying to solve cancer, emergency services, debt, tax. It's not just cryptocurrency, it's a lot of different apps out there as well. So there's a lot of things out there. So the main thing, to put control back in your hands, right? So what does a block contain? So we're talking about blockchain. So what does it actually contain? So you have data in a block. Now that data, say I want to embed all of your names and addresses or whatnot, it'll be part of that data object. And in there is a hash. Now a hash is a unique object. Once it's worked out, it can never be changed. And then it has a previous hash, and that's what creates something called the blockchain. So if you look here, the genius block, which is the first ever block created, will then, well, no, if you go to the third one, it will go to the previous, the previous, the previous. And that's how a blockchain's formed. So you're probably thinking, you're probably thinking, okay, so the computer power is so big now, someone could go and take hundreds of thousands of hashes in seconds and rejig the blockchain, right? But that's where the proof of work protection comes in. Bitcoin brought this in, and it actually means that it takes 10 minutes to actually put it into the block. It actually goes to the node, but actually doesn't go into the actual block for 10 minutes. What that does is it stops and slows down the creation of blocks, and it means that someone can't tamper with blocks and with crazy computer power and try to manipulate it. So it makes it very, very, very safe. So, what are miners? How does it work? How do you put a block in the blockchain, right? So with Ethereum, basically mostly all the blockchains in the world, they have something called a peer-to-peer network. What that is, you can have many people, there'd be thousands, and they're running their own node, which has their own blockchain. What happens is a new block comes in, and at that point, they all try to embed it into their blockchain. They check for certain things, is it valid, all of that kind of stuff. And at that point, once you get a certain amount of confirmations, they agree, On Ethereum, it can be anywhere between 9 to 66. And normally it's the top end, and normally they keep confirming after it's actually gone into the secondary node. So at that point, because you've got all of these nodes around everywhere, it's basically impossible to get a faulty node into the blockchain unless you own about 50% of the nodes out there, which I know no one does. So project ideas which are using the blockchain. So like I said before, there's loads. There's medical records, e-notes, collecting taxes. If you have a look at CoinMarketCap and you have a look at the whole list, you'll see there's thousands, there's rubbish tokens that do nothing. And there's a really good tokens that have a really good idea, like Ethereum. And at the moment, as you see there, there's 2,094 cryptocurrencies out there. And actually, yeah, I think 2 days ago, it was 212 billion market cap, which is actually 180 billion as of today, because we've had a massive dive. But don't worry about price, it doesn't matter. People get so obsessed about the price. Actually, they don't really care about the price. They want to build something that kind of changes the world and gambling. And they've took out so much money into fiat, which is pounds, and they hold a lot of Ethereum that they don't really need to worry about the price, and no one really does. People get too wrapped up about the price. So things that need to improve on for Ethereum, basically, to become mainstream, right? So speed. How our product works is we actually have to play the game off-chain. And what that means is you start the game on-chain, that confirms it, and that puts the money into the game contract. At that point, then you're doing all the hits and the sticks and that kind of stuff, say blackjack, off-chain. Because if we did it all on-chain, you wouldn't be able to play it. You'd press a button, you'd wait 15 seconds, then your card would come. So we have to do something called off-chain. At that point, when you cash out, then all the states has been updated in the smart contract. And at that point, then it pays out the winner. So speed is a huge thing. Sometimes when you're using Web3, which is a JavaScript framework to be part of the blockchain, if you're interested, it takes a long time sometimes for some of the calls to come through. And you know, at the moment, you go and buy some trousers and you do contactless. You know, it's not going to work if it takes longer than 3-4 seconds. You know, Ripple are doing some cool stuff where they've got it up to 2-3 seconds, but it's still a lot of work to be done. Manipulation. Because of the concept of gas and miners fees left, right, and center, if someone owns a lot of Ethereum, for example, they can manipulate the gas price. Miners pick the most expensive transactions. Obviously, it sits in a pool and they pick, okay, that one's doing 10, that one's doing 20, that one's doing 30. So if someone has a lot of Ethereum, they can actually basically shut down the network because it's too expensive to do actions. Hacks, as you probably hear about blockchain most of the time, the news just say hack after hack at that. And that's mainly because people don't know how to completely write these solutions in, and no one does. If you have one little bug in your smart contract, which exposes a certain amount, someone can hijack your smart contract and steal all your funds. It's because the tool set isn't really ready yet for mainstream. I say that when we've got a product live, but it's, you know, there's a lot of work to do. And the whole general view, you know, again, eyebrow slit guy, the general view of blockchain is just, oh, it's a pile of crap, who wants to use it? Until they actually understand the concepts of it, to kind of really know, okay, how can that actually be used, and that makes sense. UX and UI designs. If any of you, obviously you guys, quite a lot of you guys are front-end devs, so you appreciate good UX and UI design. The blockchain really sucks for that. They create brilliant tools and then they put like a crappy little thing in the middle and click in, it just does something amazing in the hood, but it's just rubbish. We really need to improve the UX and UI designs. And there's a couple more I'm not going to talk about. So where does Ethereum come in? So Ethereum is an open source public blockchain. It's different to obviously Bitcoin, because Bitcoin you can only do digital currency transactions. Ethereum allows you to build anything you want. It's written in Go, C++, Rust, and Solidity is the language to build contracts, but you can actually build those in Python and other languages now. And it's free to use. You just have to pay the action fee, i.e. the gas, when you do certain things. The beauty of Ethereum is you can create your own utility token. So like Fun, you create the Fun token and you power your whole ecosystem around this token. And it's a global token. So there's no euros, pounds and whatnot like that. And it's a really cool concept. So what happens when you send a transaction? Okay, there's a lot of points. I'm not going to talk about all those points. I'm going to explain what actually happens in simple terms. I just did that. So you got some reference on the presentation. So I need to send some money to Mark, and Mark will have a public key and a private key. A private key will allow him to sign stuff. You need to sign stuff to be able to send people money. So Mark will send me his public key. I'll log on to say my Ether scan. I'll put my private key on to unlock it, and I'll send him say 10 Ethereum. At that point, when I send it, you need your private key to be able to sign a transaction. And that is a way for you to know, okay, that person owns the private key, so they've been able to sign it. When at the point you sign the transaction, it goes into a pool, like I said before, and there's miners around the edge, okay? Well, let me reverse back actually. Before you send the transaction, you have to put a gas price, and that gas price can be as little or as large as you want. Normally, you're looking at about 40p, depending on peak times, and sometimes, like I said before, on manipulation, you could be looking at £3-4 to just send a quid to Mark. So, you need to put your gas in. If you put too little, the miners will never touch it. They might, but say you put 1p, it's just going to stay in the pool, and it's eventually going to be knocked out by the node, by the Ethereum nodes, and just like that go away. Stop being tired. So it goes down in there, and then at that point, the miners pick up the transaction. So they pick out mine, and at that point, they do the peer-to-peer stuff that I explained before. And once the confirmation has gone in, my money is taken away from, I'm saying Fund Token. Fund Token will have its own smart contract with the functionality to send and receive transactions. All of them will have different implementations. They can make up their own if they want. At that point, then the transactions will change wallets. I'll get minimized 10 fun, and Mark will have 10 fun. So yeah, and like I said, all blocks before they're not related to each other. The data here isn't anything to do with the data here. But if you write your smart contracts, you can make them relate if you want to. But in theory, they're singletons, like they have their own context. So again, I'm not going to talk about all of that. I'm just going to explain what is gas. I'm talking about gas, right? So gas is gas was done by design. So it's basically, I will pay you this much to do this action, right? It was done by design because if you create something free that can only handle, say, 15 new blocks per second at the moment, then you get into a situation where someone can easily take down it. When you start putting money towards something, money towards your action, you can assume that that action is valuable to someone, right? So that's why gas is there. So gas, you pay gas in Ethereum, but actually gas is not Ethereum. Only Ethereum VMs actually hold gas, and under the hood they do the transition between Ethereum and gas. The mines actually will get paid in Ethereum. So no one actually can hold a amount of gas. You can't hold 1,000 gas. Again, that was done by design because, as some of you know anyway, because of how cryptocurrency is sky high one day, sky high the next, you can't go and do an action and all of a sudden the gas token price has gone up by 200%, and that action is now worth $5 rather than 40p. So it's a very clever decision to kind of put that in there. They are releasing Ethereum 2.0, which will actually take about 10,000 new blocks a minute, which will then put us into where we can maybe do mainstream stuff. I've kind of covered most of that. Oh yeah, the last point is it's very important to write low performance task in Solidity contracts. What you've got to remember, and it's something that you don't really, well, you kind of think about as a developer, but you kind of think about speed and how long it's taken and should I cache it or should I do this? Now, this is a bit different because it's going to cost someone more money to perform your operation if it's more complex. And that is not just, oh, it's going to take their browser 5 seconds. It's actually someone's losing money. And if someone loses money because of the action, it could make people not want to do that anymore. So your kind of functions have to be very streamlined and very simple. Because if not, it's going to either A, run out of gas. And if it runs out of gas, the miner will keep all the gas and just say you've run out of gas. Or B, it's going to swallow so much gas that no one's even going to be able to perform those actions and those transactions. So I've talked about Ethereum smart contracts. Oh, yeah, cool. So what are Ethereum smart contracts? So Ethereum smart contracts are basically just an abstracted bit of functionality which can be deployed to its own public address. You can have as many contracts as you want, and smart contracts can inherit each other. This abstracts loads of functionality in them, and you can create certain things like, well, anything you want. Like people can say transfer of money, like what is the most common thing, transfer of gambling tokens. You can do kind of loads of things with these smart contracts, and people are doing a a hell of a lot of things. The cool thing with these smart contracts is they've got quite a lot of good functionality. So, for example, there's something called events, which I'll cover a little bit later, where you can fire events, which the UI can actually hook onto, and you can fire events with indexed properties, which the UI can actually filter for. So there's some really cool things. You can make methods payable. You're in control of. Does someone need to pay for that? Yes. Okay. Well, I'll make it payable. But with this comes kind of great responsibility. Ethereum kind of gave you a tool set, but they don't set you any guidelines to do anything. So in theory, you're creating this decentralized kind of, say, for example, gambling software, but you make it centralized. Like you make it that you're still in control of it. You make it that you can edit the rules whenever you want. You make it like X, Y, and Z. Now that will work, but is that decentralized? No. You can very much create centralized smart contracts which just go against everything that Ethereum is standing for, but it's that flexible that you can do that. No. Sorry. So more things about Ethereum. So like I said before, the rules are defined in the smart contract itself. So what that means is there's no third parties to say, oh no, do I do this task, do I not? They're all defined, it's all open source. So if I win on a game, the smart contract's task is to pay the winner. It's not, oh, should I pay the winner? As a third party would think, how do I get out of it? There's nothing to do with that. Smart contract is a defined set of rules and actions that it needs to do. And it's non-biased. It doesn't care if you're going to lose all your money or not. It's just going to pay out the actions. What that kind of gives you is it kind of gives you trust. Trust is similar to the last point, that no third party has to complete the task. Or no one's going to lose your documents, and it gives you full control of the agreement because you know what it's going to do, and you've actually seen the code. Obviously, if you can't read code, then okay, but like you've actually seen the code that makes it safe. Savings, quite a lot of some of these smart contracts are actually going to put people out of work if it goes mainstream, right? Estate agents, advisors, that kind of stuff, you're not needed. If you can write their job in a set of code and deploy it and make people use it like that, they're not actually going to be needed anymore. Safety, if you write a smart contract well, it's impossible for human error and it's impossible to be hacked. Obviously, if you don't write it well, it's going to be hacked. So the cons, there's obviously a few cons with smart contracts, and the main is unknowns. It's not been around long. So young tech, it's prone to problems. How the government going to tax you? How will the government regulate these contracts? Will it stand up in court, these digital contracts? The government are pushing back on this kind of stuff because they're scared. They don't want to be in this robot age, and maybe people don't want to be in this robot age. And that's another con. People might say, this is a bit too weird for me, trusting a contract over a person. And they're all the little bits that we really need to prove on. And the main thing is, at the moment, if you get hacked, your money's stolen, you can't call the police. You can't say, hey, my money's gone. It's just gone. And that's that, right? One little bug in your contract, and the whole money that you've got there has been gone, and you just can't call someone. So it's a huge thing we need to kind of improve on. So solidity. I've been talking about solidity, and there might be a few points. Yeah, okay. So Solidity is actually on version 0.5. It's quite similar to TypeScript, but this is what you build to kind of build smart contracts. Very hard. There is no IntelliSense. So I actually made a mistake in one of these in one of the code snippets, but there is no red line saying you've made a mistake. It is what it is. There's not much tool set. Anyone can decode your contracts and kind of see it, and one mistake in your code, they've got full access. So I'm going to talk about just some basic coding of Solidity, just so you can see how it is quite similar to TypeScript and it's not as intimidating as you might think. So imports, simple, right? Very simple as like the .NET Core using statement, the import for TypeScript, it's simple as that. You have to put the Solidity at the top and define the version. There is no master at the moment, but that's how you import another .solve value. Functions. Functions, very similar again. You would define your function name, and then you'd say, is it public, private, is it pure, is it payable? And then you can define your own modifiers. You can create your own custom modifiers, which I'll show a bit later. And then you define your return. So for example, here, I've got a bet, it's got no logic in, but that is going to force someone to pay gas to execute it. And that would need to be a signed transaction for that to work. State values. So everything in these contracts can be stored in state values. Right there, I've got stored bets. You can see it's not an array, right? What an idiot. But that is that is one property, but it should say stored bet, right? So if I change that in the bet itself, that would actually stay in memory in the contract, and that's something that we call state variables in Solidity. Events. So what I was talking to you about before, you can find these events, and these events can actually be looked at in real time as well as queried anytime you want. And to emit them, it's as simple as that. You can emit a bet place with a message.sender. As you see there, I'm indexing the address. And what that means is within the Web3 JavaScript code, if you wanted to use that, you can actually query addresses and only get the block transactions of the addresses that you care about. Structs, just like a class, like an interface, whatever, you can define an account with a set of properties and you can use that all within your kind of coding. Enums are good. They're nowhere near as flexible as .NET enums. You can't give it a created equals one, created, it's just one. It's table state got created. There's a lot of work to do with the enum stuff, but at least we do have enums because they do really want you to go down the object-oriented approach, creating proper structs, inheriting stuff, and that kind of things. Arrays. So arrays are a bit different. They really want you to define certain sizes. So, for example, a byte, you would do byte 32, a uint 16. They want you to have the proper sizes. They don't want you to just do a uint 256 because you're using memory that you don't really need to use there. So what they force you to do, unless you're going to make someone pay, is you have to dynamically set a static amount in your array. You can't have dynamic arrays. If you have dynamic arrays, it needs to be a payable method, which is a bit different to TypeScript. Types. So there's just a few of the types, but you have like bool, uint, int, address, byte 32, byte arrays, strings, enums, constants, that kind of stuff. If you actually, I should have put an example in here, but when you get a response back from the blockchain, it's all in hex strings, it's all in big integers, it's all in basically unreadable stuff. When you first see it, you're like, what the hell is this? Because then you have to decode it into readable kind of stuff, and everything's saved kind of like that. You would never save well, I have there a string, but normally you would convert, everything would be a hex string basically, and that's how it would come back. Function types. So there's different function types. There's an external one. So that is can be installed by external functions, but cannot be called internally, as it says in the tin. There's public, anyone can use that. There's internal, and internal ones can be used by the inherited contracts. And then there's one more, which is private, which, same as .NET, it can only be used by its current contract. Function modifiers. So there's different function modifiers. The coolest thing about the function modifiers is you can create your own, which I'm going to show you next. But there's different things. Like I said before, querying data, getting data back is free. So a view is something that you can kind of do. It's no gas, it's free to call, and it will just return data back, and it will use all the properties inside the contract as well. Pure is what you use for little helper functions. You would say, you would pass in a number and it will do some calculation within that. That can't actually access any of the local variables. It can only access its own context. Payable is what I said before, where people actually have to pay to do that. So anything that you're changing in the contract, any new block that you're putting into the blockchain, is a payable method. And you can go custom ones. So I made a mistake here in the code, right? Can anyone spot where the mistake is? It should be quite simple. Okay, no, okay. So what you can create is custom function modifiers, right? So what I'm saying there is only the owner can transfer ownership. And here, obviously, I've done message.sender equals seller. That needs to be owner, right? That's the mistake, okay? And what would happen is when you create the contract, at that point, you would set the owner in memory when you create the contract. And at that point, only the owner of the contract can actually transfer ownership. The owner would be a public key, and someone would own that, and that would how you protect certain internal methods. If you use this too much, people start, crying and saying it's not decentralized, you can do certain things, but transfer ownership is a very common one to do. If you had stuff like you define the rules and you had set rules as a public method with only owner, then you're creating a centralized contract, which is just not good. Mappings. Mappings is just like a dictionary. You map X to X, address to bool, and you can have multiple mappings. You can have many dictionaries and many dictionaries and many dictionaries. And that's a pretty cool way to save stuff. So when an address comes in, you can say, okay, cool, give me all the addresses. Are they allowed? Have they got permission? Which you can do. Something like this, you would probably never do. You should never have to pass the address in. You should be able to get the address from shortcuts, which I'll show you next. So the Ethereum VM, it has 3 different ways you can store stuff. It's got storage, where all the contract state variables are stored. It's very expensive to do that. You kind of want to avoid that. You've got memory, holds context in the memory. It's a lot cheaper to do that kind of stuff. And you've got the stack, which is completely free. For example, if you create a little shopping cart on the blockchain with a session ID, which expires after a certain amount of time, it'd be very nice to do stuff like that with that, because you can remove it and put more stuff in. Error handling. There's all different kind of error handling you can do. Well, there's actually 3, it's not all different, but there's requires, the main one you use. Like I said before, you want everything to be cheap. You don't want to do if everywhere. And you don't want to really validate stuff to the highest level. There is no is sender equal address. That doesn't exist. So you have to kind of say, is a sender not equal 0? And at that point, you have to let it go through. So that requires something that you would use all the time to validate. You see that in quite a lot of contracts. You'll see at the start to validate the data. You should validate the data every single time. There's the difference between assert and require is assert should only be done for internal errors, but you can't actually throw an error message on assert. You can actually throw an error message on require. That error message would then mean that whoever called it would get that RPC, JSON RPC error back. And there's revert. Revert is obviously used quite a lot. It's like a begin transaction in SQL, where you can just roll back your stuff. So there, I'm changing the mapping, setting it true, but like, oops, no, I don't want to do that anymore. I'm going to revert all the data. Returns. So there's different ways you can return stuff. You can return one thing, or you can return many things. As simple as that. You see example 1, I'm just returning a uint. Example 2, I'm returning a byte 32 and a byte 32. You can handle as many returns as you want. Delete keyword is the same as deleting an object of JavaScript. Delete a data array. Converting. So converting stuff is a bit different. There is no throwing in Ethereum. It doesn't throw, and you've got to be very careful of overflowing stuff. If you overflow stuff, you're in a very bad position. There's something called safe maths, which is a library that you need to make sure if you write these contracts that you use. Overflowing stuff can cause huge problems. So when you convert stuff, for example, a uint 32, that's the maximum. Well, that's bigger than a uint 16. That when you convert, that's going to put that to the maximum of a uint 16, and it's not going to tell you that. And you've got to be very careful with your conversions. Control structures. So this is just similar to JavaScript. I think I've got a question here. Similar to JavaScript, there's an if, there's an else, there's a while, there's a break, continue, return. There's a true, false, and a null. Time units. I like the time units incidency. It's obviously it makes sense. Everything is, so now is a built-in function which gives you, the current date and time. And you can do stuff like here, now start plus days after times 1 days. And that could be times 1 years. That could be 365 days, sorry. Times 1 minutes, years doesn't work anymore. They've got rid of that, so use days instead. Special functions. So these are what I was talking to you about before. There's loads of special functions, but these are the main ones. When a transaction comes in, it's been signed if it's a payable method. And at that point, you can get how much they're sending, the sender, the address, and the message value. And that's what you'd use in there to authenticate that's been signed and they own their private key. You get the gas left, and on there also you've got the block numbers. So you can get, what is the current block number, what was the time step, and what is their gas limit. If you're very clever in your contracts, you can say, wow, their gas limit is X. We're not going to be able to fulfill this. Let's throw them out now. If you threw them out now, you're going to save them a lot more money, and they're not going to lose it all. Built-in address ones, similar. With address, you get balance. That is open to anyone. Anyone can get your balance. It's free. Anyone can get that. You can send stuff. Obviously, if you send stuff, you have to sign the transaction with private keys and call
Call is what you use quite a lot in the Web3 things to call, functions. Everything is an any at the moment with Web3. So .call, whatever you want, and that would be .call bet place, for example, and pass the data in. Scoping and declaring. There's no let, which is in the JavaScript world at the moment. If you define something, same one, and you define it again, it's same one, it's not going to compile, it's going to not like it. Okay, I'm done. Cool. Right, yeah, so thanks a lot for listening, guys. If you're interested in this kind of stuff, I'm not sure if you are, whatever, you should get involved. It's a really cool industry. There's a lot of work out there and a lot of well-paid work as well. So yeah, I would get involved if you want to. Go on GitHub, look and contribute with people. Just go through it, build a decentralized kind of smart contract and see what it's about. But yeah, cheers for listening, guys. And any questions, I'll be trying to answer.
Josh, how long have you been writing the Solidity code then?
So yeah, I haven't actually been writing it too long. Everyone that I actually worked with has only got 1 year's experience with it. So I've been doing it for about 5 months. Like I said, it's only on 0.5 of the version. It's a language that you can pick up quite fast. I've took you through the very basics. There's a lot of other stuff you have to get over, and it's very, very complicated with all the hex strings, stuff like that. The data is not normal data. It's not first name, Josh, second name Stevens. It's a huge hex string. So, but yeah, I'm really enjoying it, and I've loved working with Funfair, and it's 5 months.
To me, it kind of looks like quite a low-level version of JavaScript with some of the data types that you're using over.
Yeah, I mean that was a very basic level. There's some of the smart contracts that are written for the cassette is a lot more complex than anything like that. They were the foundations of the kind of types. But yeah, you've got like byte 32s, byte 64s, byte 256, but you've got to be a lot more careful when you're writing these smart contracts than when you're writing JavaScript. If you write it wrong, you're going to lose someone a lot of money, and someone's probably going to get hacked. For example, if you wrote the token contract wrong, there's been many times people have just stole all of the tokens and sold them on a trader and made 70 million, whatever. So yeah.
So what does it compile down to? It obviously compiles down and runs within the Ethereum.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah, so Solidity was invented by Ethereum itself. When you compile it, you use something called remix, and that then basically puts it, you embed it into a public key, and that address will then be a public key. And then under the hood with the Ethereum VMs, it calls all the methods in there. And if you look at Etherscan, you can actually see in real time all the events firing and all of the amounts being sent in and out of all of the contracts as it goes.
I'm interested in your the business strategy and target audience for tools like Funfair that's designed for people who are making their own casino apps or whatever. I think it's a great thing for these things to be decentralized and open source. But how are they essentially their customers? They're going to have customers who understand the code in order to know that it's fair.
Yeah.
And also care about it. And surely that's quite a small population of people, because ultimately all companies tell you that you can trust them.
Yeah.
The difference is that this one you can go in if you have the certain skills. How many gamblers are there that use casino apps?
Well, yeah, I don't know. It's a good question, and it's a very valid one. We're in an industry where we're saying, hey, go and decode all your hex strings and you can prove it's fair. And I don't think anyone here can do that. There's a lot of things that we need to improve on. I mean, last month we made 10 grand profit from 100 users, right? The main thing that we're seeing is onboarding. I think the main feature isn't about the fairness. Well, it is, but it's about the ability to pay straight into your wallet, so no one's in control of your funds at any time. That's the main thing that sets us worlds apart from any other gambling. It's not about, is that fair? Well, it is, because that's what a name is. It's more about, no one's in charge of your money. If I bet £10, the operator actually doesn't get that money until the smart contract has gave their action of, yes, they win. So there's a big difference in that to the traditional betting.
So would you say the major strategy is then kind of getting ahead of the game in case cryptocurrency becomes the biggest?
Yeah, I mean, we can't. I know my mates and their betters, they probably wouldn't use this right now, right? But if they knew that they could get instant funds, maybe they would, because they could quickly cash it out. And if we really, the one thing that's really hard at the moment with our business is onboarding people. It's too difficult to let people, you know, have to sign up their own wallet, hold their own private keys, sign their own stuff. It's too difficult. As soon as we build our own wallet and try to kind of put it out to the masses, we're hoping then we can appeal to a more wider audience. But that's definitely a problem that we need to overcome, and we'll see it in time, I guess.
With all the legality around gambling and you know, sort of the tight regulation there is on that in both the UK and the US and worldwide, how does that sort of regulation apply to Funfair, if at all? Well, it does. We took it to the UK Gambling Commission, and they basically said, we can't understand it, no, we're not giving you a license. So we set up in Ireland an office, and that's how we can regulate it, right? That's what happened. Basically, yeah, I mean, there's no gambling regulations, and they'll just give you a license to gamble if your head office is in Ireland. But yeah, you know, UK is one of the tightest gambling rules there is in the world. And you know, we can't offer the platform to UK yet, and a lot of other countries because of this. And it's not because they don't think it's a good idea. It's more because these corporate bods in suits every day are like, I don't get it. And I think it's going to take a long time for them to actually start nodding their heads and saying, yeah, this is a good idea. But I think the first way forward is saying, look, guys, you can set up your own wallet in a couple of clicks and start betting yourself, and we'll put the amount of dollars or pounds against your fund, kind of making it more mainstream rather than all you've got to be involved in crypto to kind of understand it.
How far do you think you're away from being at that level? I mean, someone can go onto something like Betfair right now or Bet365, open up an account, drop 10 quid in, refer a friend. It's easy, it's understandable.
Yeah.
You almost need to take away all that complexity from Joe Average, right, and play on the whole fair, it's crypto, it's non-hackable, etc. And it just seems that you're a million miles away, right, from that vision.
Yeah, I mean, we're one of the only cryptocurrencies with an actual working product which people are using. We are far away. You're right. You know, we need to build our own wallet, and we're doing that. And, you know, that's not a small task. That's going to be 10 months to a year to build. At that point, then we really do think that the likes of William Hill and Bet365 and Skybet will actually take it seriously. And actually want to join on board of that, especially with our app store abilities, you know, have the readmes and stuff like that, and actually build your own game and actually start making money on that game. We are a while away. We are. I'm not going to say tomorrow we're going to take over Bet365's 36 billion profit a year, but I think in time, in a year or so, once Ethereum 2.0 comes out in a year or so, I think then we'll be in a really good position to.
Yeah, I mean, it almost seems to me that the fund have attacked the gambling market, but I mean, I understand the value of the blockchain in certain industries like medical records. Just take that as an example. Yeah. Like having a facility where you can create tamper-proof medical records and very clear auditability seems to be a much more, shall we say, politically acceptable user case for the technology. Yeah. Right, where kind of gambling because of the regulation isn't. So, so why not put all the effort into making like non-hackable database structures and things around the technology rather than just going gambling? I'm just I'm not seeing. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love the idea of building these sorts of services around the technology. It's got loads of potential, but it's almost like they've taken an industry and bet the house on an industry. Bet the house is a bad pun there, right? and rather than exploring other avenues of it.
I mean, I think you can probably say that point about everything. Like, obviously, putting medical records in the blockchain is going to be seen as wow, it's better than gambling, right?
Yeah.
But I still think there's a need for it. I mean, the people who have created this, they're not just average Joes. These are the people who were actually founders of PKR, $1 billion company, and they started this company. So these people kind of know what they're doing. But hey, it might not work out, it might work out. We'll have to wait and see, right?
No, it's a journey.
I wanted to say something about this. I used to work for a professional gambler before I started doing development and stuff like that. I know that when you start getting into the higher realms of betting, that you do get your money free, get money freezes from like Bet365. So I know what you're talking about in senses like that. But what incentive is it for Betfair, Bet365, Skybet to do this decentralized stuff? Because like you say, it puts the money in the middle. They can't snatch it back and decide that they don't want to give it to the end user because it's quite a high amount.
Yeah.
They come out on the right side there. So by doing your method, they're always going to have to get that money up.
Yeah.
Now, we've heard excuse after excuse after excuse from Bet365 about why they can't pay you out.
Yeah,
Or,
exactly.
we reckon there was an early runner, or we reckon that was got suspected, foul play, match fixing and stuff like that. So they've always got an excuse, but with your system, they'll always come out on the wrong side, and the consumer will always come out on the right side. So I'm just thinking what sort of angle that
I mean,
you're going to get in with these big companies.
Yeah.
It's interesting because what you're doing is going to solve them a problem, but it's also going to create them a problem at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think on our goals is it to be a partnership with Bet365, but quite a lot of people in this room probably won't understand how many people there are like you and your friend who bet a lot of money. It's such a big industry. So when people look at it, like, oh, why would I go and put a £10 accumulator on the blockchain? It's not about that. It's about fairness. So if they didn't want to be part of it and didn't want to adopt, then we have our own operator and we're actually giving this software to other operators to set themselves up. And hopefully eventually when the big people go, you know what, I can actually bet the same here and it goes straight into my wallet, they take that probably such a large chunk out of the industry into here, and then it becomes a norm, right? People start doing it and using that, becomes a norm.
Become more mainstream.
Yeah, we need big people like that to move over first, and then we can see what happens. But like I said, we are a long way away from even coming close to even being near Bet365 or Skybet.
Let's say I'm setting up a new gambling company.
Yeah.
And I'm evaluating having my own servers versus AWS versus putting everything on the blockchain. What about running costs of the applications?
Well, our running costs are very, very low. Storing the data on the blockchain is obviously you pay gas, but it's all handled by Ethereum. AWS itself, we host some of our websites and our SQL Server box. So actually setting up a casino is probably going to cost someone about, depends how much traffic they've got, right? But it's not going to set them back a lot. And we could actually host it for them. We've got our own infrastructure to host it for them. So we kind of want to take that pain away from them. But you wouldn't think it won't be as expensive as you think it would be just because we're using our data source on the blockchain. Like a little SQL Server box that has about 50 tables and at the most with not much data in it. And we have an Angular application which then calls the blockchain directly. So there's not a lot of stuff that needs to be deployed with it. Cool. Josh.
We have time for one last question.
Yeah.
With the fragility you said of solidity contracts and sort of the potential for any bugs, how sort of tight does the automated testing that you have to do on these solidity contracts, and how can you do that?
There's a tool called Truffle, which allows you to test these and do completely a lot of code coverage on them. So you can actually you can set so we created our own private networks. You can run a Geth, it's called Geth node on your own box using a Docker image, and you can call that. And you can start embedding stuff into the blockchain and test it. The issues we're facing is these fake environments are a lot different from mainnet. That's what the main environment is called. So we're having huge problems. Testing it is still a problem. So we just have to be on it with code reviews at the moment. Until the tool set gets improved, we kind of just have to be really, really on it and make sure that there's nothing, go through audits, go through all that kind of stuff before we release it into kind of mainstream. Because we've defined our main channel of taking money, the games now are very easy to build because we've done all the complex stuff. It's separate to the other game contracts. It's called a fate channel, we call it, which does all the complex stuff. And that's been audited, and that's absolutely fine, apparently. But yeah, there's a lot of tools that needs to improve to test it, but you can actually write unit tests in JavaScript, which then call your Solidity contracts and deploy them.
I've got one last question, if I can, Josh.
Yeah.
Okay, so for people that don't know, Josh obviously used to work here, right? And left, how long ago is it when you left?
About 5 months.
About 5 months. Okay, so you left to go down to fill your dream, because Josh has always been into crypto while he was here. Became the crypto expert with everybody in the company while he was here. Has working in this industry been everything that you hoped it would be?
Yeah, I mean, I worked in London for 3 months, and now I'm full remote. Don't have to go in the office. But yeah, so that's good start with, right? Secondly, yeah, the industry is brilliant. It's the same as, working in cloud code. You see it like that. You talk about the same things. Just because it's blockchain doesn't make it any different. We went to Prague last week for the Ethereum conferences, which is really cool. We met the Ethereum creator, and we had big conferences and stuff like that. But the community is really, really cool, and it's, going there is just as cool as it is working for Funfair. There's not really much difference. In the industry, yeah, it's everything that I thought I really enjoyed. So yeah, definitely.
Good. I'm glad. Thank you very much, Joe.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
So there we are. We'll be back in January. I haven't posted the Meetup link. Actually, I should use the mic because apparently there's people watching on YouTube. I haven't posted the Meetup link, but I will do. So RSVP there, and I hope to see you all again next time. So thank you very much for coming.
How are you, Greg? Good
luck for Tuesday. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you all.
it's different, isn't it?
Yes. Because I work with it's cool. Yeah.
Yeah, you used to. I don't want it.
Okay, yeah,
No, you need to try.
Yeah, so it's not bad. Right now, I think about the testing he does is like so much stuff.
I'll come to the next one.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, he does the React. It's PC39 JavaScript for me to remember. And so it's pretty cool guy. The same way thing. The same cool thing going. When you're talking about it, yeah. So I was talking about
React programming, and I came in. So this React extension, yeah, it was developed by some guy at Microsoft. And apparently, observables, some people have observables, it's just the opposite of it. It's like a push-based kind of collection thing. And yeah, they were going, they were talking about theory, and they were just writing this apparently this Haskell kind of thing on the whiteboard. On the whiteboard, and it was like this guy. Yeah, they're just nuts. Yeah. So It's like, I don't know, in Spanish, they were kind of translating the types. No function. I don't know if you
I'm assuming you can think about like a functional way of
yeah,
essentially transcode.
Yeah, Okay.
Going to that kind of contract. I tried to go to the basic level, but that's still.
Oh yeah, this one.
Yeah.
So now they are in C sharp, right?
I mean, it's just one place to not look at you make a mistake like that, and tell you that.
Before we have, but they go nuts because like they snatch at each other's spec. Oh, that it's like that.
Yeah. Programming comes from because functional programming. The reason why it you know, they're just.
I've got to train it or personality.
So pretty much like he came up with this and then just translated it into C sharp.
Please back up. I was down there. I did
So always spend time with different languages and you realise they're all the same. I mean, you know, you've got your variable declaration, your ifs, your loops, your function calls, and even if you're doing functional programming, you're doing object programming, whatever, it's all to say you need those called call components.
What?
Unless you're doing no, obviously then.
Are they let out?
You said they were. Just kick them out.
Interesting. When we get to so I don't know actually
I mean, I've done it before, I'm doing courses, but it's not the thing I wanted to do, it's not the thing that's excited me.
And that goes,
You can't say that because you're so excited.
you trust the recruiters to park in like that.
There we go.
What's freaking e-reader? E-reader.
It's not exhausting. And Calvin got in,
so people can kind of, you know, so people have like, you know, the menus, obviously, you know, the menu or whatever. It's pretty standard, right?
Is that on YouTube? Like, they can play back. But like, once it's off live stream, you can play it back, can you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So